So we're back with another episode of House Wolves, the Pet Dog Collective, and I have two special guests from an organization called Save Texas Canines. I have Judith and Jen. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your charity. Can you take just a moment to introduce yourselves for everybody listening? Judith?
Oh yeah. I'm 44. I'm originally from Germany. I moved here in 2003 and I'm married. I have a son that's 10 years old. I'm a horse trainer. And so we've always been involved in rescue somehow. Just because we live out in the country and there's always a ton of stray dogs in the country. And I've always had a deep passion for all animals, but especially dogs. So I love horses, but I may love dogs more. So
Wonderful. And you're a full-on volunteer with
yeah,
Save Texas, just
yeah,
so people
yeah,
understand that. It's all volunteer 100%.
yes. I live in North Texas, and so I'm the first spot basically that everything comes through. Yeah, so I technically still do train horses, but it's really hard to find the time to do it at this point. So I probably put in at least 70 hours a week to the dogs.
Wow. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's full time
yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's probably full time, long day.
Yes. Okay. And Jen, do you want to give a little intro to yourself and your sort of role with Save Texas Canines?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jen. I met Judith a few years ago. I was working with another rescue out of New York. I got into doing dog rescue mainly because I had switched careers from human medicine over to managing pet resorts. And dog world is small, and it kind of introduced me into the shelter realm of things. And I think, like most people, I'm surprised to have learned, what is the actual reality what's happening at the shelters across the U.S. So for me, I got involved with the Texas Rescue, and that's how I met Judith. And like Judith, I'm full volunteer. I work full time managing a veterinary hospital now. And that is my dog Jack, who likes to bark every time I'm on the phone. Every time.
All right, he's a guest as well now. Uh, Judith, do you want to give a little more of an intro to Save Texas Canines, the organization, how long it's been around, and sort of what your focus is?
Yeah, sure. So Vicky Norris founded the rescue, I think, in 2012. Originally because she's a very good dog trainer. She has a pet resort and a dog training facility close to us. And yeah, so she founded this organization really to help all kinds of dogs. So originally it was named Canine Training at Homeward Bound. So she would provide training and help dogs maybe find their way back into socialization. And then she's kind of slowed down just a little bit, but she's always still doing a lot of stuff. But then a few years ago, I don't actually remember when, um, we became friends, and I started helping her with horses. She started helping me with dogs, and then I kind of started using her rescue to do some adoptions to Germany. So we have. I have a lot of friends still in Germany, and Germany is a no-kill country, which means they do not euthanize any shelter dogs unless it's truly for the benefit of the dog. They don't have the same issues that we have over here. It's a very different setup. Dogs are valued as family members. They just don't get disregarded like they do here. So with having that connection, there's always certain breeds that you can only really mostly get at the breeders in Germany if you're looking for a purebred. So I have a lot of people in the horse business that I'm friends with, and they generally like the cattle dogs and border collies and other herding breeds. And So if you're looking to rescue a dog in Germany, those generally are not available. So they started rescuing from over here because they would much rather spend the money on getting the dog flown over to Germany than spending the money with the breeder and knowing that they did a good deed and helped the dog in need. So I started using her rescue first to just tag those dogs, and then facilitate everything as far as the donations through her organization called Canine Training at Homeward Bound. And she would support me wherever she could. And pretty soon the thing grew really quickly, really fast, had a lot of interest, and moved a lot of dogs. And then at some point, Jen and I met, and Jen had this really cool concept of helping the Texas dogs into some of the northern states where also they are wanted, uh, and where the dog overpopulation and the euthanasias in the shelter is nothing like it is in Texas. And so we kind of started working together and moved just a lot of Texas dogs from the euthanasia lists, some into Europe, some to Canada, some to the northern states of the US. And at that point, with the name being Canine Training at Homeward Bound, people always somewhat assumed that we would be willing to do a lot of training, which is really not what we're set up for. So we ended up wanting to change the name to something else and thought that with Save Texas K9s, it kind of makes it kind of self-explanatory that our dogs come from Texas, because that's also a question that we would always encounter when we try to market the dogs in different locations. So that's how we came up with the name Save Texas Canines.
Okay, wonderful. And how, like, for people who don't know, let's just touch on like the amount, the overpopulation problem, how big it is, because a lot of people don't realize like how many dogs, like just about the high kill shelters and how many dogs are not making it. Like I know in some shelters they have like 3 days, and if they're not adopted in 3 days, they're on a list. Maybe we can just explain, I don't know, Jen, if you want to explain a little bit about that for people so they understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the problem with the shelters is, and everybody likes to blame the shelters and say, why they're the ones that are doing the killing. But the truth of the matter is, they only have a certain amount of capacity. And it's the amount of dogs that are going in is greater than the amount of dogs that are leaving. So, it's a statewide, it's a countrywide issue where people are dumping dogs. They're not getting their dogs spayed or neutered, and because of that, they just keep, populating. And that is where the strain on the shelters comes to play. So, the shelters sometimes will have a capacity of 100, 150, and they're, operating at 110 to 150% of capacity. So meaning they have dogs in doubled up, they have dogs in pop-up cages. I mean, they don't want to euthanize, but a lot of the times they just don't have a choice because they don't have places for the dogs to go. And typically stray holds are usually anywhere between 3 and 5 days. Some of the shelters are great and they network, like some of the larger municipal shelters, like San Antonio, Dallas. They'll put their dogs out there for the public to see. But there's a lot of these smaller animal control facilities, which really are all throughout Texas. Basically, in every town has one. Those dogs aren't getting networked. They're not getting publicized, and they typically have the same time frame, maybe a little longer. There are some shelters, if they're not space is not critical, they'll hold them a little longer, but that's far and few between. So there's so many of those shelters out there where these dogs aren't even being seen, and they're just being brought in, and within 3 to 5 days they're being put down if nobody claims them. Judith, do you have anything to add to that, or being in
Yeah,
Texas?
I think you covered it pretty well. There's also a lot of dogs on the streets that keep
Mm-hmm.
populating. And the other problem with that is that the shelters simply don't even have the capacity to take all of the street dogs.
So there's a big stray population is one of the things. And then Judith, you touched on it, like just the regard for dogs. Like thought of as like part of the family. Like there's a bit of a mentality shift there.
Yes. So you may also have a lot of places where maybe dogs are owned, but they're truly roaming free and getting fed occasional and don't really get any vet care. So so I don't know that it's only spay and neutering that's the issue. I think it's the whole people taking true responsibility to own a pet. So they get that and then they may contain it somewhat. So I'm
Are there laws in Texas that would help this, and it's just a matter that they're not enforced, or is there a lack of laws in Texas that's allowing this?
Well, the laws in the country are very vague. If I don't want someone else's dog on my property, it is my responsibility to fence in my property appropriately. So, like if a stray dog was to come on my property and threaten my livestock, I guess I would call the sheriff. Most likely, there's nothing they're gonna do about it. I've had a lot of friends that have told me they've called the sheriff department to get help for dogs that come and chase their horses or cows, and basically their recommendation is just to shoot them. So and then also if you pick up a stray dog in the country, you may it depends on your area, but there may simply not be a place to take. So find a rescue, which then we're just volunteers that don't really get much support. Get no support from the government hardly, really. There are some shelters that get supported by the government, and they may have like a spay and neuter clinic or something where we can maybe take advantage of getting the dogs fixed through them. But that's pretty much the most we can ever get.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about spay neuter. Like, is there access to low cost spay neuter for people?
Yes, somewhat. I think if you're willing to put out a little bit of effort, you will find it. If you're lazy next door person, which that's generally what creates most of this problem, you're not gonna find it. So there are a lot of large shelters that have vets on staff that will spay and neuter everything that comes in, and will give out vouchers or other ways where you can really get it done fairly reasonable. So the expenses of spay or neuter, I don't think are the problem. I think it truly, in my opinion, truly the problem is the lack of really taking responsibility of the animals and claiming your own versus just something that you're just like having and then not having. So.
And is there a lot of like backyard breeding in addition to, I imagine the stray dogs are just overpopulating themselves, but is there also then a lot of like backyard breeding and people trying to sell puppies, and is there both or?
I think so. But I think all that is again kind of regulated by the demand. So like a lot of people will get a puppy and then throw it away a year old, and then maybe half a year later get another puppy and throw it away when it's a year old. So yeah, there is some breeding. There's a lot of backyard breeding going on, but it truly comes back to there's the demand. People are willing to buy a puppy that's fairly cheap, but then they won't keep it.
Okay, so there's a big lack of education and just responsibility for dogs, really.
Yes.
Is it part of the problem?
Yeah, it's socially tolerated, and I say that's what I kind of believe might be a big part in this, because you'll see people living next door to somebody that's starving their horses to death, and they may say, well, we did we did call the sheriff department once, and then that's it. So it's also like, I feel like in other areas of the world that may be worse, but in other areas it may cause outrage, and some of these things don't really cause outrage here. So you'll see a house that has, I don't know, a bunch of pit bulls in the backyard. They're all skin and bones. They are cold and they're repopulating, and the neighbors, just kind of try to stay out of it, not get involved.
Yeah. Where I live, that would be hard for people to grasp because here that
Hmm.
definitely people would lose it.
Yeah,
That
that
it'd be like flooded with phone calls and it's so different. That's
And because you don't have the law that's going to back you up, that's what, people feel
Mhm.
like helpless. They can't get involved because they could put themselves at risk
Yeah.
for any kind of retaliation, and B, people, they know that nobody's going to do anything about it. So
Yeah.
people say, well, why bother?
Yeah.
And it's, when you, just to add to what you were saying about like the backyard breeding, and I think like where people think there are demands, like there's a lot of backyard breeders in certain counties in Texas for healers, for example. Like there's a county just south of San Antonio, and they call it healer country, and they're definitely backyard breeding, and you see a lot of them in shelters. My dog Jack, who you just heard barking, he's from the Fort Worth, Texas shelter, and I definitely think he came from some kind of a breeder, because through the Embark DNA test, I connected with two other DNA relatives of his. Both of them that came, well, one of them came through our rescue. The other one happens to be one of our volunteers in Colorado, who has siblings of his, or what would be the equivalent of a sibling, or some other close relation, all tracing back to that shelter.
Mhm.
So, is it happening? Are they being bred and dumped when they get to a certain age?
Mhm.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
And again, the laws also there don't really protect that, and people, are going to do what they're going to do. So,
So let's get down to, so now that we've sort of explained to people the problem, you guys are doing incredible work by trying to save some of these dogs from basically death row. How many would you say organizations are you getting dogs from? Like, how many shelters are you working with in Texas?
well, I would say anywhere close to probably about 50 different organizations.
That's a lot.
Um, yeah, because there's the bigger shelters that we work with regularly,
Mhm.
like San Antonio, Fort Worth, Dallas. Then there's also, some of the smaller shelters in the area, um, those smaller, animal control facilities that we'll pull from occasionally. And then there's also our street feeders down in what the area called the Rio Grande Valley, which is an area of like 4 or 5 counties that kind of are border towns to Mexico. And there's a group of mostly women down there that, basically are taking care of these populations of dogs that just live wild in like packs. They're not, there's no vetting, there's no spay and neuter. They're basically just looking for food. Oftentimes, we'll see these horrific videos where they're eating out of trash bags. There'll be other deceased dogs around them, dogs that are being hit by cars, found at gas stations. And a lot of them they do like feeding routes, and they go around and they'll leave food for them, shelter, and then they'll try to post them and get rescues and people to help either sponsor or take them. So we get a lot of the dogs from there as well. There becomes, it presents other challenges because you don't necessarily know what's going on with the dog until you already have it in your care. You also don't, then you have to find people locally who can hold them, and most of those people are full. And then that's probably what, 12 hours minimum to Judith's.
hmm
So then it's getting them onto a transport,
Yeah.
or getting them transported up to where Judith is. So, all of those are different avenues where we're getting dogs. Recently, I would say pretty recently, within the last year, there was a person who contacted Judith not far from where she lives. It was a pure husky that gave birth underneath their porch. A desirable breed. So it's not always breed specific. People think pit bulls and everything, but it's all different types of breeds,
Yeah.
that were found under somebody's porch. And she's like, I don't know what to do with these puppies. And sometimes you bring them to the humane societies or the local like local shelters, and they just don't have room, so they'll turn you away, or they'll put you on a wait list and say, well, you can hold on to your dog. They'll often do that with owner surrenders too,
Yeah.
until we can find placement. Well, people aren't going to wait, so then they just go and dump them, or they put them like free on Facebook Marketplace. And we, a lot of our street feeders will take dogs from that too. They'll like troll the free
Hmm.
dog sites,
Yeah.
and because they don't want them to end up in the hands of dog fighters.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's
And
all different ways we get dogs into our organization. So
you guys operate solely on foster homes and like volunteer foster homes, basically. And then, or do you
more so
have,
Judith is the foster home from. Yeah,
Yeah.
we basically want every dog to go through Judith's place for numerous reasons. Um, and we do have some out of state fosters, mostly, that we work with. It's just, sometimes, utilizing fosters and everything, can bring in other variables too,
Mhm.
as far as like dog valuations and medical and everything. Like Judith is really good at, knowing when a dog needs to go to a vet, which vet partner to go to, so you're not walking out of there for $1,000 bill for, diarrhea.
Yeah,
So,
totally. Yes, totally.
you know,
So what kind of capacity do you have at any given time for how many dogs you can take,
Well,
would you say?
so ideally, I would like to have part of my life back. So,
No, you can't.
yeah, so ideally, we're building a facility which is half finished and already using it, and it should have 10 kennels. So that should allow us probably anywhere between 8 and 15 dogs.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times you'll get a mom and a litter of puppies and, be living together. But so that's kind of the idea, is that we will reduce things to anywhere between 8 and 15 dogs max.
Mhm.
But the last 3-4 years, we've probably had anywhere between 25 and 40 at any given.
That's a lot. That's a
We've,
lot.
yeah, that's a
yeah,
lot.
It's a lot.
my whole place. So we set up kennels in the hay barn. We set up kennels in the horse stalls, or we just put them in the horse stalls. And I had a smaller quarantine area that we built that now I turned back into my son's chicken coop, because I have to make sure that I don't neglect my family in the process of this. So
Yes.
that we have the shelter up, and we actually currently have 9-10 dogs at the shelter. So half of it is totally usable. The other half is still in process. So I'm actually supposed to be laying tile here as soon as we get off the phone.
Always been.
So are people usually reaching out to you and that's how you receive the dogs? Or are you sometimes going, hey, there's a great dog. I know we can rehome it and I'm gonna pull it? Or is it both?
No, we try to really take the dogs that we already have. That's what I really try to do, the ones that we have somebody for. So some of these dogs that are marketed all over Facebook and TikTok, we may have people that reach out, just like you, reach out to us and say, hey, I'm really interested in this dog. How can I get this dog to me? How can I get this dog safe? And then there's, as you know, there's quite a few steps involved in doing that. And it might be a little bit more even with the street dogs. I mean, at this point, we've had dogs with parvo, distemper, you name it, we've had it. Broken
Yeah.
bone, all kinds of things. And so a lot of times it'll take a bit of time and effort to get the dog ready to go into their home. But it's nice to know that there is somebody that's seriously interested in this particular dog to begin with,
Mhm.
because then it may not always work out for different reasons. It may be that once we have the dog in our care, we realize this will not be a fit. Say the dog is not dog friendly
Yeah.
or dominant and wouldn't fit with the dog that's already in the home, or it's not cat friendly. There could be multiple reasons why it's not going to work out at the end, but for that home, and then we will post them and find appropriate home.
Yeah,
But it's nice to
that's
know when you pick up the dog that there is a very good possibility for it to have a home to go to in 3 to 4 weeks.
definitely. I was just gonna say, what would the average stay be, like 3 to 4 weeks? Like
Oh,
ideally.
yeah, at a minimum of 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah, if the dog doesn't have any major needs, uh, we'll at least quarantine them for 2 weeks.
I mean, that's a great system because the faster you can move them out, the more you can save. So if there's somebody potential there, then that's a very good system. And I won't digress too long, but I'll just explain to people my connection with Save Texas Canines. For anybody who does not know, I adopted my little Kelpie mix Cora from you guys from Texas, Save Texas Canines. But I found her myself on the San Antonio website, and she was on the kill list. And I knew what I wanted, and I think for people looking, what advice I could give them is kind of know what you want because it can be overwhelming with the
Hmm.
amount of animals on
Yeah.
there. So I knew I
Mm-hmm.
wanted a female, I knew I wanted young, I knew I wanted a Kelpie mix, I knew I didn't want a puppy. And I saw a very short video of her and just knew that would be a good fit. And I contacted San Antonio, and their rescue list was like pages long. And I thought, I don't have time for this. So I said, who's actively pulling dogs? And they gave me 3 rescue names, and I emailed all of them, and Jen got back to me. So, and then for people who want to adopt, it was the most amazing experience. I mean, you guys pulled her out of the shelter for me. He looked after her for many weeks before she could get onto transport. And then the ground transport team, we'll get into that. Like the amount of people that helped rescue Cora, like the amount of resources and the amount of people was huge. And then I picked her up in Bellingham, and she's honestly just perfect. It's been about 6 weeks, I think, and she's the perfect dog for me. So I can't I tell people up here, like, if you want to adopt a dog, this is a great route to go. And how you were saying about in Germany, like in Canada, we do have a lot of healers, a wanted herding dog. We don't have a lot of Kelpies here. Like it would be
Hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
rare that you would see a Kelpie.
Hmm.
So, and I didn't want a puppy. I didn't really want to go through a breeder right now. So I
Hmm.
thought, what a great way. There's so many Kelpies or Kelpie mixes in the US that this is a great route for me to go. But it was like the amount of resources that go into rescuing one dog, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys maybe just go through like you guys pull the dog, you touch like vet care, need surgery, some have a broken leg, some, and then you find an adopter. Then there's a whole transport process. Plus, you've got
Mm-hmm.
volunteers in between, driving from the shelter to Judith or driving from, there to the vet. Like, how many people go into rescuing one dog? Like, a number of
Mm-hmm.
volunteers, would you say?
Yeah, I would say anywhere from on the s- small side, maybe 5. On the large side, it could be up to 10 people. Um, there's that cliche saying like it takes a village, but it really truly
Yeah.
does. Like for example, for Cora's story, you know, um, the first step of the process is that we reach out to the shelter and we tag the dog. We let them know that we're going to take them under our rescue, and that if that San Antonio is good and that they provide vaccines, and they will alter the dog before they leave the shelter. So that's a great step for us, in a shelter partner. And then we would need to reach out. We have about 2 or 3 volunteers in the San Antonio area who can pick up the dog. And then they would bring it to our local, it's like a boarding pet resort, not far, who will, be the first immediate stop for the dog when they have to get out of the shelter. Because you have to get them out of the shelter within 48, sometimes 72 hours. Basically, the day that they get finished being spayed or neutered, you really need to have them out that evening or no later than the following morning. That's just their capacity, rules. I mean, if you tag a dog and then you leave it there for 5 days, that's not really helping the issue. So we would rely on the person who would pick them up from the shelter. Then they would go to the boarding facility, where we keep in touch with them almost on a daily basis. Then we would arrange for a transporter to bring them from boarding up to Judith. And we have maybe about 3 different group transports that we would use, but then we would also have some independent transporters that we would send down there. Let's say if we had multiple dogs at that boarding facility, it might just be easier if we, send somebody down just to pick up, our 3 to 5 dogs. And then they arrive at Judith's, and then unfortunately, a lot of that burden will then fall on Judith because she will be the one taking them to the vet for checkup. If they get sick, a lot of times they come from the shelter with some kind of an upper respiratory issue. So sometimes that requires medical intervention or vet intervention. And then, getting them the health certificate that they will need to be able to go out of state. Yeah, and then basically she'll bring them to the transport meetup after we arrange transportation, depending on where they're going. And I mean, we have transports that go to the East Coast, basically sometimes once a week, sometimes every 2 weeks. The Pacific Northwest and the Midwest is more like monthly. So sometimes that can affect the time frame. And then they'll go to, then they go on the transport, and the transport has anywhere from 1 to 3 volunteers. And then and then they'll make it home. But sometimes, I don't know, Judith, am I missing any volunteers in between there? So that
Yeah,
we
I
sometimes
mean,
will rely on. Yeah.
we also we have a few vets that live close to me that I'm really good friends with on a personal level, and some of those help us out a lot. So yeah, so there's a lot of times where they will not charge us near as much as they would charge regularly, and I feel like them being willing to take a hit a lot of times when they're helping us out, and volunteering their time. Like, for example, yesterday, that's not really true through our organization, but yesterday our local shelter got in this cute little, very pregnant healer puppy, healer female that ended up giving birth that wasn't progressing, and one of our friends that's a vet ended up doing a C-section and saving the mom and saving the puppy that way, and she literally did that at no cost. So I feel like these people, they're so amazing, and without them and their dedication to help all these dogs here in Texas, there's no way we couldn't do this either without having them to fall on when we need to, if we can't afford to just maybe just take a dog to the vet. They will step in and they will do it for us.
Definitely. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
If people want to adopt from Texas through Save Texas K9s, how should people go about that? What's the best way? Like, do you list your adoptable animals on the website, or how should they, like, what's the process they should go through?
Yeah, I mean, so Pet Finder is probably our biggest networking tool for the dogs, and Facebook second to that. So if anybody is interested, they can go on to Pet Finder and they can actually search our organization, Save Texas Canines, and they can see all the dogs available in our care. And we also post them in the areas where we can easily transport to. So that's definitely the best place to start. Also, if there is a dog that we might be just in a local Texas shelter that somebody is interested in, they can reach out to us and see if that's something that we can work with them on as well. Like, for example, I was sharing a local dog at a smaller shelter. Now this is a shelter that they don't do any vaccines, they don't do any spay and neuter services, so like that, where San Antonio does a lot of that, this requires a little bit more of the burden on us to be able to go and pick up the dog and then have to do all the vetting, and then also the unknown, like, is this dog heartworm positive? Do they have any out of their medical issues that we don't see based off of the picture and the short video they may or may not have posted? So that's sometimes a way people will go about it too. Like San Antonio has a group of women that network a lot of the dogs that are on the daily euthanasia list. And then we'll get a lot of phone calls. Judith and I call that urgent mode. And that's when people will reach out to us the morning of euthanasia, and you have to have them tagged by 11 a.m.
Yeah.
in order to make sure that they're safe. And there's times we go down to the wire,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of pressure on us when somebody calls, crying that they see this dog and they don't want it to die, and we send them an application because we also have to be responsible and make sure that this person is going to be a good adopter and kind of feel out the process. Yeah.
Yeah. You
So,
called the vet and everything. I did the application with you. You called my vet for my
yep.
reference. So you guys, on top of everything else that's going on, also vet these people.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Is
Yeah, because
very
like
good.
Judith meant, yeah, you have to, because you want to make sure they're going to end up into the right homes,
Exactly.
and even not even so much that they might not be just like the right adopter, but they might not be the right adopter for that pet. So we have
Yeah.
taken dogs, even recently, a really nice pit bull that an older woman really wanted, and she has other small dogs. But
Mm.
Judith quickly realized that this is not the right fit for her. Like small dogs wouldn't be the best fit, and an older woman, he's strong and energetic, maybe not be the right fit. So we're going to find another home for him, and it's not because she's denied because she couldn't provide a good home. She just wouldn't be the best fit for that dog. So we run
Yeah.
into those situations too, but we do the best we can to try to vet them in that urgent situation, so we can try to help the dog if possible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
What areas so can you pretty much adopt anywhere in the United States? Or like you were mentioning, some areas are easier than others. And then with Canada, is it more if you're closer to the US border, or
Yes.
what areas can you get
Mhm.
to?
Yes. So Canada is kind of tricky because the flights to go further up north in Canada, they're very restricted by the weather. So there's really only a very small window in the spring and a very small window in the fall where you can even get the dogs into Canada, into further up north Canada. So we
Mhm.
don't really do that. We really mostly do the ones that are really close to the US border, and they just come across the border to adopt.
Yeah,
So
like you
Mhm.
did. So
yeah,
like
Yeah, British
Bellingham.
Columbia, Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then we try to not, I mean, occasionally we'll move a dog, we'll adopt the dog to one of the other southern states, but it would have to be something very specific. Say, if somebody in Georgia really, really desperately wants this particular dog, or somebody in Alabama, then we may find a way to do that. But we kind of encourage them, really, I do for sure, to adopt in their own state, because even though,
Mhm.
so Texas and California are the worst states as far as shelter animal euthanasias,
Yeah.
but I mean, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, they're also not great. So I'm
Mhm.
fairly confident that you can, if you spend a little bit of time, if you live in one of those states and you spend a little bit of time researching the shelter pages, you will probably find a dog that suits you, fits your home, uh, within reach. And
So
I
would you
Mhm.
encourage people in those states to do that so that we can
Mhm.
focus on moving the dogs into the states where you may not be able to find the dog that you're looking for in a shelter. And I feel like that overall will save more lives in the long
Yeah.
run. So we try to not adopt into similar into states that have
With high
similar
risk. Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So what about, can you give some tips for people? You guys had great resources, like for
Mhm.
people who adopt from you. I was really impressed with your handouts and your resources, because obviously it takes a while for this dog to settle, and the first few weeks can be difficult for people because they want to save this dog, and then they get it in the house and now they don't know what to do. So it's eating things, they don't know what to do. Maybe it's scared, maybe. So you guys have great resources and handouts. Do you want to just touch on like what people should expect? What are some, just not your whole list of tips, but just some tips for
Mhm.
bring these dogs into the home so that it can be successful?
Yeah.
You wanna
Go
go?
ahead, Judith. Well, I mean, Judith, you're really good on the behavior end. So, I mean, my biggest thing was just going to be like people need to be patient and just keep in mind that what the dog has already been through,
Exactly.
and to allow it to settle in, because we'll get a phone call within hours after they arrived and been like, they just went to the bathroom in the house, or they're really not coming out of their crate. And so, we want people just need to like give them a chance is basically my
Yeah.
biggest thing. But I'm sure Judith can go into more. I mean, she's great with the behavior stuff. So
Yeah, I think that a big deal too is that you kind of have to understand that they're animals, and whatever their life has been like so far, that is their norm. And that's has, even though we think it's sad and terrible, and it is, there's a certain amount of comfort for them in the knowing that type of a life. Like, so when you so that sounds, yeah, it's kind of difficult to explain. But so if you take a dog and you take it from being an outside dog living in a kennel, and you give them the free roam of the house, and you let them on the couch and on the bed and buy them a million toys and give them treats, and it may be very overwhelming for them because they have never experienced such a thing. And so we, by nature, we humans want to spoil them because they have gone through so much bad. But that's definitely not the right way to do it. These dogs need a slow integration into the home, so we always recommend to give them time, give them space. Do not overwhelm them with toys. Do not overwhelm them with treats. We want the dogs to move into the home and slowly find their security in their new environment. Because we don't want them to, we recommend to people to not allow the dog to bond intensely to you. Don't overstimulate it, because if you immediately start training and you start allowing the dog to follow you around from room to room, what happens is that in this new world, the dog has zero stability yet. They don't feel secure in any way. So now their whole security will become dependent on you as a person, and that can create a lot of separation anxieties. So
Yes.
a lot of things can be avoided if you make a kind of a 30-day commitment to just allow the dog to arrive. So that's a really big deal. Don't allow the dog in the bed the first night. Don't allow the dogs on the couch. Just give them some time to watch how the household is run. Um, they're very good observers. Dogs are extremely good observers, so they will observe what's happening, what's going on. They will kind of figure out the dynamics of the household, and then they will make themselves fit in when they're ready, more so than if and they will fit in better that way than if we try to make them the center of everything. That's not good for them. So that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that we see happening, is that out of the goodness of people's hearts, they want to give the dog everything and so much love, but this dog has never received so much attention and so much love, and so now he's totally overwhelmed, overstimulated, confused, and he will not have the time to actually find his own security, and that's really important. He just needs to arrive and needs to have some space and time, get comfortable in the setting that's already existing. So I always advise to just follow up with your normal routines and pretend like he's a guest, and just sometimes just pretend like he's not there. Just let him figure it out.
That's honestly good advice just for all dogs. They don't have to be
Maybe true.
that's just advice for dogs in general. So they love routine, they love having their crate space, and when
Yes,
Cora came home, I tried to make everything very, very routine, and she definitely needed lots of time just to decompress and sleep even, and
yes.
definitely just observe things. Because she quickly came around on her own, but
Mm-hmm.
she was a little bit standoffish with new people, but she came around very, very quickly. But I just let her observe, like you were saying, basically, like
Yes.
don't push me. But she's funny. She's very intelligent. She's very, very intelligent. I think she's
Yep.
smarter than my shepherd. But I have a
Oh,
routine
wow.
before she's crazy smart. I have a routine before they eat. I just like them to pee first because it's just my routine. It's easier. They pee, then they eat. And so she wanted nothing to do with this because she was a little malnourished and underweight. So she was very hungry. And I'm like, no, we're just going to do pee pee because I don't like to be out there for like 30 minutes while the dog sniffs for a spot. Like, I like to kind of train them to pee on
Right.
command.
Yeah.
Before we train, you pee. Before we eat, you pee. It's just my thing. So she figured this out. And she, one morning, I'm like, do your pee pee. She fake squats and then tries to come back in the house.
Oh, that's
She
great.
just, she just wants to see me squat and then I'll back in. And I'm like, patience. And I'm like, I'm not going to let her wear me down. So I'm like
Right. That's
waiting
awesome.
because I didn't give in. I'm like, don't give in, don't. And then, of course, she did her pee pee and now she's very good at it. But I'm like, can't let them wear you down. She's never had a dog do that. Just fake squat and then give me my food.
Yeah.
She's
That's
so
awesome.
so
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, they're very
these are
smart.
all very smart. So what are the best, like we've touched on some of them already, volunteers, and what are the ways that people can help Save Texas Canines if they want to help? What are the best ways? Like adopting, donations. I'll add some links in this podcast. So for people
Thank
who are
you.
interested, like your adopt staff will put those links in. I'll get them from you, maybe Jen. But what are some other ways what are all the ways people can help if they want to get involved? Wow. Yes. Yes, definitely. Mhm. Oh, yeah. Fine. And
Yes. And
volunteers, do
with
you need more
blankets.
volunteers? Yeah, I'll touch base with you after and I'll get those links, the Amazon wish, all those links, and we'll get some photos for when this gets posted. But I thank you so much for taking the time. What you guys do is so incredible. Thank you for everything you guys do for the dogs.
Well,
And
thank you for adopting.
I've missed that you want to add? Is there anything that you want to add for sure?
Yes.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yes. I would
Judith,
like to. No, no, sorry. I would like to
any final
add to.
words?
Sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
just
I
any
would.
final thoughts?
Okay. Well, yeah, I would like to add to that it's things aren't really getting better here until everybody starts speaking out, and we need to hold each other accountable to higher standards of animal care. Um, Currently, Texas roughly euthanizes about 100,000 animals or more in shelters every year. And that's a number that really should not, I mean, that should not be tolerated. That's not a
Yeah,
problem that should
that's
just be swept under the rug. And, destroying these lives is basically the way to solve that. That is the solution at this point that Texas has for the animal crisis. And that is not an okay solution, and we just need to keep speaking out, and we need to hold each other accountable. I don't know if we need to implicate some new laws or what really needs to happen to back this up, but every person can do a little bit by just by uh, reaching out to others, creating more awareness of that this is going on, and this should not be okay. This
yeah,
cannot be like this in 10 years.
that's a huge number. Like that's
Yeah.
huge for one state,
California,
100,000. And these
yes,
are beautiful dogs. These
right,
are, I see so
right.
many of them, and they're beautiful, adoptable dogs. Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly.
true. Yes, or there's just so many that there aren't even enough facilities or volunteers that can even help move them out in time. So we even get purebred German Shepherd puppies, we get purebred Chihuahua puppies, and they are on the euthanasia lists, and they are about
Yeah.
to get killed. So, and there are a ton of puppies getting euthanized, just because there are not enough people that that can help move them fast enough. So, yeah, so that's really something, right? Yeah,
I saw some pregnant dogs or dogs with new puppies on the site, and it just killed me. Like, it's so hard to see.
yeah,
But that's
yeah,
when,
it's
like, for
really
an
hard.
adopter, you have to know what you want and put your blinders on, or you're gonna have like 80 dogs in your house.
Right.
So hard.
Yes,
It must be so
yes.
hard for you guys to like take this one but leave this one. But the thing I liked about you guys, oh, this, like you're very ethical, very responsible rescue because the fact that you do keep your numbers to a certain limit, like I'm sure it happens down there. It happens up here. I used to be very involved in rescue, and there's rescues that get in way over their head. Like they take in way too many dogs, and now their dogs have diseases, and now their dogs are getting to the vet, and you end up with like a hoarding situation because it pulls on your heartstrings. Like take
Yes.
this one, but leave that one. But you guys are so responsible and so ethical. I was so impressed in
Thank
working
you.
with you guys because not every rescue is like this. Like, not every rescue is responsible in only taking what they can take care of and then vetting people. So I was very, very impressed. So for people, like, look into the rescue you're dealing with too, and deal with a rescue like Save Texas Canines, because they are not all like this, anything like Canada.
Yes. To add one more
People
thing
mean
to
like
that too.
they mean to do well, but sometimes
Right. Yeah, it just
they
happens.
get into a
Yeah.
holding situation. It just happens, but that's
Yes.
not a good situation either.
No, it can be very overwhelming. I would also like to add, if someone wants to adopt but doesn't feel comfortable looking through the urgent pages, just like you said, because it's so heartbreaking and so overwhelming, they're welcome to email us and email us typically what they're looking for. Say if you email me, hey, we had a request that we just filled. Actually, I've got to pick him up this afternoon from Germany for a border collie, under 5 years old, dog friendly, people friendly on the submissive side, and border collies. It's easy for us to find that. It may take us a week or so to find the right fit, but between all these shelters, there's pretty much, if you're looking for a particular dog, we can probably find it because there are so many. So if you don't feel comfortable looking for yourself or you don't know where to look, you can email us, kind of give us an idea of what the criteria is, what would fit your home, maybe fill out an application beforehand so that we kind of have a little bit of knowledge about your home, and then we are super happy to find you the right dog too.
Yes, that's an excellent point as well. Well, I know you
Thank you
have
for
busy
having
days
us.
and you have orders to build and dogs to pick up, but thank you for everything you do. And I hope that we've raised some awareness today and maybe have found
Thank
some
you.
new potential adopters.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much for having us.